Welcome to the Week 1 Go-To session. This is the first of 4 such sessions we'll be holding this month. Thanks to those who are here in attendance live. Welcome to English Composition. Okay, I'm looking forward to working with all of you this month. This first session is, we're going to spend an early part of the session talking about just some bureaucratic stuff, like how the class is run, how to contact me, and then we're going to get into what we're working on this month, because we are working toward a single project or a single assignment, which we'll be doing in steps. And yeah, I want to go over that and what you'll have to do in week 1. But let me begin by just talking about the class in general. And let me bring up, let me go into one of these guys here, okay? So here's our class. Maybe things look a tiny bit different on your side, but essentially this is what you see. A list of activities. You have a bunch of getting started activities, okay? Most of them are worth 0%. Professionalism is a month-long grade, okay? It's worth 10% of your overall score, but basically if you complete all of your assignments on time, you maintain a professional attitude, right? So I don't know, you don't curse me out or curse out your classmates or do something egregious. Yeah, you should be fine. Most students are getting very strong grades in professionalism. The only time I take off points is, again, for like late or missing assignments. And again, really egregious. Egregious is just a fancy word for terrible, bad behavior. Okay. But otherwise, these are all worth 0%, but they're activities you still have to complete. So for example, for the people here, is everybody here signed up? For example, well, you're here, those of you who are here in attendance, of course, successfully registered for tonight's lecture. But what about McGraw-Hill? Is everybody signed up over there for the textbook, as well as turnitin.com? Because this is the place where you are going to hand in your major writing assignments. Are we doing okay on that side of things? Okay, Jonathan says yes, just finished that. Everybody else, I assume, is doing okay. Because we will have a lot of people who watch these lectures after the fact, because not everybody can attend at Wednesday at 7 p.m. Let me just show, which one was it? McGraw-Hill. Okay, so this is the textbook. Let me go into preview mode. Registering for McGraw-Hill is so simple. Actually, let me log out of McGraw-Hill. I already have McGraw-Hill open, but I'll just log in all over again. I have to be signed out in order to show this fully. Don't know why it's not going. There we go. Okay, sign out. Anyway, here's the registration activity for McGraw-Hill. So anybody who's watching this at home and is having trouble with the textbook, yeah, there are a lot of instructions. Okay, and even several videos. But really, registration is as simple as going down and finding this document right here, registration details. It's a PDF. Click on it, and going down to this URL, web address, and clicking on it. Don't copy and paste it. Okay, if you copy and paste it, it will probably result in an error. But if you click on it, it should take you directly to, yeah, you'll see my name this month. We're technically not in April yet, but this is the April course. And this tells you you're in the right place. And then it's just a matter of following the steps, entering your email. You should probably be using your Full Sail email, and then clicking begin. Now, you will need your textbook code. And let me open up a blank document, because if for some reason you check your Full Sail email account, this is where the textbook code should have been sent to you. If you cannot find your code, okay, after you've checked your junk mail folder, make sure that you didn't accidentally delete it. If you truly do not have a code, you need to contact FSO support at 877-437-6349. Yes, I have it memorized because I've called it myself and because I pass on the number to so many students. FSO support handles the textbook codes, and questions about textbooks or textbook codes are among the most common issues that FSO support handles. So they will be able to help you pretty much immediately and get you a code within 24 hours. Do call them. I know that there's an email option. I believe there's even a tweeting option, but sometimes they don't get back to you if you use one of those forms. Give them a call. Okay? If you give them a call, you should get immediate help. So that's what you use, and not just for textbook codes, but for any technical issues that you're encountering with the FSO platform. They can probably even help you with specific programs, so software that's installed on your computer, or problems that you're having with Turnitin, Again, they'll be most knowledgeable about things that are directly full sail related, but these are tech people, so they might be able to help you with a number of your tech issues. Okay, uh, so let me go back here. So yeah, it's as simple as clicking on this PDF. Okay, registration details, and then clicking on that link, and then following the steps. And actually, let me get signed in over here because I do want to show something else. And actually, let me go back to the main menu of our class activities. You will see that every week you have this guy here, week 1 lecture archive and required reading. So this is where I'm going to put the recording of the live lectures, okay, because again, not everybody can attend live. So this is where you're going to go to view that video, but it also contains instructions on what you need to read for the week. Okay. Right, so you can read through all this on your own, and here's the required reading. 32 pages. That sounds like a lot, but they're easy pages, trust me. It's not like 32 dense pages. It's not like 32 pages from a novel. There will be visuals, there will be bullet points, there will be things that are perhaps highlighted, but it's not as difficult as you think. And doing the readings is important because you have an activity every week called the week 1 journal response, the week 2 journal response. And let me go into that. And you can read through the bulk of this on your own. I just want to point out the highlighted part. Using quotes and or concepts from this week's reading, as well as this week's lecture. Explain your understanding of blah, blah, blah. I'll make this really simple. I treat the journal responses as sort of like an informal quiz. Your task is to show me that you did the readings and you watched the lecture. So I recommend writing 2 paragraphs. They don't have to be super long. They should be super short, like 2 sentences. But yeah, a short to medium-ish paragraph. One that summarizes the reading. Okay, show to me that you did those 32 pages of reading. You don't have to touch on every single thing, but give me a sense that, yeah, you did the readings. And then 1 paragraph that summarizes the lecture. Okay, if you do that, yeah, you're going to receive a high grade. If you don't do that, then the grade may not be so hot. Again, you want me to walk away thinking, yes, this person did the reading, this person attended or viewed the lecture. Okay, so very, very simple. But yeah, don't get burned, because so much of this class actually is composed of what I like to call gimme points. Don't get me wrong, there's work to do. I'm not saying they're completely free points, but the week 1 journals, yeah, you're just showing that you did the reading and you attended or watched the lecture. And if you can show me in your response, I recommend it again, writing 2 paragraphs, one that summarizes readings, one that summarizes the lectures. You should be receiving A's on the weekly journals. There is an interactive module over on McGraw-Hill that needs to be completed. And if you complete it to 100%, yeah, you get 100. If you complete it to 78%, you get a 78. But if you do the math, we're talking about 10% per week that really should be in your back pocket. Week 4 is a little bit different in that there's no Achieve module for week 4, but there is a journal. But still, we're talking about 35% of your grade. And remember, I said professionalism is a month-long grade, but as long as you complete all of your work, you don't have any missing assignments, you don't have late assignments, you don't have any bad behavior, professionalism should be an A. So that's 45%. When 45% of your grade is an A, yeah, you can practically fail the other half and still earn a C. I don't recommend that. I'm not trying to teach people to blow off the class, but I'm saying you put yourself in a really, really comfortable position if you take advantage of all these easier assignments that are completely in your control, okay? Because they're not subjective. It's not, my opinion doesn't really come into play that much. You either did the assignments to satisfactory completion or you didn't. Okay. If you need to contact me, I strongly recommend using the FSO platform. So many people use FSO because it has a really convenient messaging system that, yeah, sometimes I forget to check email. So email is not the best way to get in contact with me. Sending me a message through the platform does. I also want to apologize real quickly. I think I got back to everybody who wrote me messages, but I was a little bit delayed on Monday, Tuesday, and even a little bit this morning because I've had some emergencies with my car. that needed to be taken care of. So normally I'm much more on top of things and much faster with the responses. But if anybody was wondering why it took me over 24 hours to respond, it was because of that, a little emergency that I had on my side of things. Finally, let me just show what McGraw-Hill looks like. And let me pull away my mic for a second because I'm getting over a cold and I have to cough. You can perhaps hear it in my voice. It's been over a week and I'm still suffering from it. Okay, so here's our class. I'm going to go into the student view. So this is how things will look on your end. So as you can see, everything's organized for you. Your Achieve modules are here, one per week. Okay, and by the way, I've opened up all activities for the entire month. So don't be confused. I know it's a little bit confusing, but the due dates are the due dates on FSO. The reason why I've set the McGraw-Hill readings and modules for the entire month is A, so students can work ahead if they want to. You want to bang out all 3 of these interactive modules the first week? Fine, you can do so. Also, and this is a bit difficult to explain, it makes it easier for me to see your completion percentages. When I have firm due dates set for each week, I can't see the completion percentages of those people who complete things after the due date, so I just open it up for the entire month. But let's begin with the readings. Jonathan says, I went in a few minutes ago and it told me nothing was available yet. Really? For the readings or the modules? I'm a little bit surprised about that. Anyway, let me go into the readings first. Okay, Jonathan, let's see what happens on my end. Let's see if there's... but anyway, because everything's organized for you, the week 1 reading is really as simple as clicking on the week. And then, here, let me move my panel, which you can't see, but I can see out of the way. And just begin. I used to have a pop-up blocker that was blocking this, but I think I got it turned off. And there you go, okay? So the reading automatically pops up. And you just need to work your way through this. Okay, as you can see, there are pictures, there's a little bit of text. And actually, this is my first time going. I have like a hard copy of the actual book. So this is my first time using the online one. I assume when you're done with this page, you probably have to click here. Yeah. And yeah, as you can see, it's not that much reading when you take out the pictures and the stuff at the bottom that you don't need to worry about. Okay. And I guess there are 32 of these guys. And you're not reading a chapter entirely. It's sort of, we've carefully selected sections from chapters for you to read, the stuff that will be most relevant for you. Okay. So anyway, once you get through all of the reading, let's see, how do I get out of here? I just want to get back to the original page I was on. Let's see, maybe table of contents. Oh, and then, by the way, here's an overview of all that you're reading. I believe for week 1. Okay. I was hoping there was a quicker way to get out of here. Maybe if I just keep going back. Okay. Okay, so I have to figure out how this works. I'll figure it out later. Oh, I know. I think it opened up. I see it opened up a different window. Okay. So there are the readings, right? So it's all organized, and you can just read through the 32 pages, and then again, your only task is to summarize the readings in those weekly journal entries. Now, the interactive modules, that's something you actually have to work through. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this guy, begin. And I believe it's going to set up a schedule if you want for how many days a week you want to work, but you don't have to follow that. Okay. Please review blah, blah, blah. Hold on. This stupid panel is in my way. Okay. Okay, so here it sets up a study schedule. You can do it all in one sitting if you want, but you can set up a schedule if you like.
Let's start learning.
Okay,
this adaptive study session.
Yeah, be quiet. And then you can choose how you want to do it. I'm just going to say complete the assignment. This is for if you want to do it in one sitting, although you can come back. Now, I'm going to do something terrible, which is try to answer some of these questions without first knowing anything about the material. But choose a correctly punctuated sentence. The famous Belgian detective boarded the elegant train in command of the passengers. Touch nothing. Touch nothing. Okay, and depending on how confident you are about the answer, I already know that it's this one, because in this one there's no punctuation at all ending the sentence, so that's wrong. Here, the punctuation, end punctuation, the exclamation point is outside the quotation marks. That's not right. It actually goes inside the quotation marks. So this one is the right answer, and I'm very confident that I know that that's correct. Okay. And what happens is, see, I'm right. You click OK, and then it shows you your progress down here. Okay, I'm 2% complete. As soon as you get to 100%, you're done. So here, click on the arrow in the declarative sentences below, and then type the correction in the box. She enjoyed reading about polar exploration. I don't know what's wrong about this. Maybe the exclamation mark isn't necessary. So I'm going to change that to a period, maybe, and click OK. How confident am I? I think so. Correct. Okay, there's no reason to put such strong emphasis on such a basic sentence, right? Because the exclamation point means emphatic. Like, she enjoyed reading about polar exploration. Yeah. No, it's a basic sentence, so we need a period there. Okay, as you can see, we've gone up to 4%. So anyway, I'm not going to answer every question because then you know all the answers. Although I think they pull from a pretty large database of questions, so you may not see those exact questions. But does this make sense in terms of what you need to do with the reading and those interactive modules? Does it help seeing me go through it in real time? Yes? Okay, good. Because I used to have a walkthrough video, but because we made some changes to the textbook, they're no longer 100% relevant. I should make another walkthrough video, but as long as I go through it a little bit in the session, I think you'll be fine. Okay, so yeah, if you can get to 100%, you get 100. Easy peasy. So let me get out of here. I'm done with McGraw-Hill for now. And let's start talking about what we're doing in this class for the month. I have a keynote. See, PowerPoint, keynote, key point. Okay, keynote, which is Mac's version of PowerPoint, essentially. So welcome to week 1. We talked a little bit about overview. Oh, I should also add, we do have a late policy in this class. The late policy, it used to be 0. If you didn't hand in something by the due date, it just got a 0. I always thought that was ruthless. It led to more students not passing the class, and I think we should be trying our hardest to pass as many students as possible. So now we have a penalty where it's 5 points per day, okay, taken off for each day of lateness, and that's for any assignment. So as long as all of you know that and are aware of that, yeah, understand that if something's a day late, sure, 5 points isn't much, right? Especially if you do really strong work, if you hand in one of those weekly journals 1 day late and it's basically picture perfect, okay, a 95 is still a strong score. But if something is 2 days late or a week late, right, a week late is 35 points taken off. That means even if it's a perfect 100, the highest grade it can get is a 65. So be careful. All this stuff, syllabus, course resources, office hours, the writing center, some of this stuff, the first 2 can be found under, oh gosh, what's it called under the student side? I think it's under the About tab, okay? My office hours are, I actually have to fix my office hours because they're no longer matching what's written there, but they're under the welcome activity. Okay, I do have to fix that because the truth is I'm here on campus. I work every day, but I'm on campus Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, not 5 days a week like it currently says. The Writing Center is something you should take advantage of. I'm going to go ahead and type the email address in the chat. It's writingcenter@fullsail.com. Okay, I'll say that out loud again for the people who are viewing this after the fact. Writing Center, one word, Writing Center at fullsail.com. You do have to schedule appointments 24 hours in advance, so you can't just say, oh, it's a Friday, something's going to be due on Sunday, so let me get in for an appointment today. No, you would have to schedule something on Thursday morning or afternoon, or even early evening for an appointment on Friday afternoon or evening. Okay. If you're on campus, you can sometimes have these tutoring sessions with the Writing Center in person, but since a lot of our students are online, you'll use GoToTraining like we're doing right now, one-on-one with a tutor, who often is a instructor. I sometimes volunteer for the Writing Center. But anyway, that's something that's available. Why do you have to take this class? Well, you can read through the data here, the quotations and the statistics. But I think most people understand that writing is important. Even the people who claim, well, I'm not here to study writing. I'm here to study digital cinematography. I'm here to study music production or game design. English isn't important. Even the people who say that don't really mean that. I think most people understand that people who can write well, who can communicate well, that's a pretty valuable skill to have. The interesting thing about successful people, regardless of their industry, so people from the business world, people from the entertainment world, various managers, okay? So, regardless of the field that they work in, successful people tend to be pretty bright, and they tend to have strong communication skills. So I don't think I have to convince you on why being able to write is important. And we'll spend a week basically talking about writing and examining your own writing. Now, how will we do that? Well, we are going to work toward a single paper. That's right. You'll write one paper in this class. That doesn't mean you only have one writing assignment. No. But we are working toward a single essay, and we're going to do it step by step. What will you be writing about? Well, the image on the screen sort of gives a hint. This week, all students will write an ad analysis. You will choose an advertisement, but you don't choose it on your own. I have a list of approved ads. Actually, let me show you where those are. So let me go back to our page. If you look in week 1, I believe it's here, assignment overview, the essay. Okay. Let me move the control panel, the GoToTraining panel, and go into preview mode. So again, you can read all this on your own. Oh, my computer is really... I hope people can hear me okay, because I'm getting like choppy. I'm going to try to close maybe some of these, like the McGraw-Hill thing, maybe that's eating up memory. Anyway, you can read all this on your own, but the important thing for now is here's the list of ads. Okay, so there's a McDonald's ad, Call of Duty. Lots of people choose Call of Duty. Allstate, etc. How many do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 ads. 5 of them are television commercials. 3 are print ads. And we're going to practice in just a moment looking at ads and figuring out what we might say about an ad. For now, let me give some general advice. Do not choose an ad based on how cool it is or how much you love video games or how much you love Big Macs. After we finish today's lecture, choose an ad based on what you can see in the ad. Okay? We're going to practice this in a moment. But every month there are students who just pick the wrong ad. They pick an ad and they ultimately don't know what to say about it. So you want to choose an ad based on things you can immediately see. Print ads tend to be more challenging in some ways than commercials because print ads don't have sound, they don't have movement, they don't have characters, right? It's a single static image. So if I open up the Wintergreen, Altoids Wintergreen ad. Okay, right, so here's a print ad. You have to be comfortable talking about visual elements if you choose a print ad. Television commercials also have visuals, of course, but print ads are almost exclusively visual. Okay, so on some level, you have to be comfortable talking about them. But anyway, let's put this into practice. Let me close this guy. Let me get back to my lecture. And let's look at a sample ad in just a second. Okay, that's what I already said. We're working on ad analysis this month. So looking at an ad and finding things to say about it. Now, what does that mean, ad analysis? what it means is you're not going to summarize the ad. You're not going to describe the ad. You are going to examine specific aspects of the ad. Just as you might lift up the hood on a car to examine the machinery underneath, you're doing the same thing with an advertisement. Okay. Don't worry if you are thinking, well, I'm not comfortable doing that. I don't know what I would possibly say about an ad. I'll help. Okay. And plus, this week's first activity is a brainstorming worksheet that you need to fill out, and that should get you on the way toward finding things to say about the particular ad that you've chosen. Because yes, we're trying to answer the question, how do advertisers do what they do? How do they persuade their audiences? Because if you think about it, ad agencies, so the people who actually are in charge of creating ads for McDonald's or for Allstate or for Target or whatever company, they're often being paid millions of dollars. They're often spending millions of dollars to create these ads. So no detail is there accidentally. These ads are not made randomly. A lot of thought goes into these ads. So ad analysis asks students to take a close look at those details. So right now I want you to think in terms of threes, because what you're going to have to ultimately do is find 3 aspects of the ad that stand out and you can make an argument are meaningful. Okay, so 3 moves that the ad makes, 3 moves, or 3 decisions that the ad's creators have made. 3 of those details that, again, are not accidental. They're there for a reason. And once you spot those 3 things, you'll be well on your way, because those 3 things will be listed in a thesis statement. We'll talk about thesis statements today as well. And we'll actually set up the entire structure for your paper. Because what we're aiming for is a 5-paragraph essay. And actually, let me go real quickly. I know I'm getting ahead of myself. I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you. But I have completed the assignments for this class. I think it's incredibly useful to go through the activities that I'm asking students to do. Here, let me close this. Don't save. My computer is really choppy. I don't know what is hogging all the... hopefully we can make it through the session okay. You won't see this essay until week 3, because it's not until week 3 that you'll actually write an essay draft. We're going to work toward the essay one step at a time. So this week is brainstorming. You're going to complete a worksheet that asks several questions that ask you essentially to take a close look at the ad and, yeah, answer a series of prompts. Next week, we're going to start planning the essay. So next week's main activity is an outline. You don't have to create the outline from scratch. We actually have an outline template that you're going to fill out. Week 3, you will actually write an ad analysis essay. So yes, I'm getting way ahead of myself, but I've written an essay about Jeep, and we're going to look at the Jeep ad in just a moment. But yeah, we're working toward a 5-paragraph essay. So here is my 5-paragraph Jeep essay. We also have a former student essay on Diet Coke. We're also going to look at a Diet Coke ad in today's session. But anyway, I'm going to keep that open because it might be useful for me to refer to the essay in just a moment, or actually a little bit later. A quick reminder that this class is intentionally designed to take us through the writing process. Whether you're familiar with this writing process or not, it probably either you've been taught this before in a previous class, or it kind of strikes you as common sense. So week 1, we're here, brainstorming, developing ideas. Next week, we're going to focus more on researching. Yes, there's research that's going to be required for this essay, and organizing. That's why next week's activity is an outline. Week 3, you're going to write a draft of that essay. In week 4, you're going to get feedback, not only from me, your instructor, but also from 2 of your classmates. And you're going to use that feedback to revise the essay. So pretty much each week of the course is devoted to a separate section of the writing process. Here we're brainstorming. Next week we'll be here. The week after that here. And in week 4 here. And this is just a repetition of that. Actually, there's a small mistake here. We used to do peer review in week 3. Actually, peer review is at the beginning of week 4. Okay. So let's start putting these ideas into practice. Here's a Jeep ad. This is the Jeep ad that I used to write that sample essay. I should note, you do not see both halves of the ad at the same time. You only see one half. But I'm showing both images because it reveals the little trick. Okay? Looked at one way, the ad looks like one kind of animal, a giraffe's head. Looked at another way, upside down, it looks like a penguin. Okay, pretty neat trick, right? And if you probably can't see very well, but if I, oops, here, let me go back. If I blow this up a little bit, I know it's still difficult to see, but it says Jeep. See whatever you want to see. Written in kind of an arc, upside, right side up, and then upside down below the image. And obviously the upside down encourages you to look at the image upside down and notice that the ad is, a visual trick. Okay, looked at one way, it looks like a giraffe. Looked at another way, it's a penguin. Now, even though you've perhaps never written an ad analysis before, perhaps you've never looked at an ad critically before, but just using, and don't worry about right or wrong at this stage, what are some things that leap out to you in this ad? Like what seems, even if you're not able to pinpoint exactly why it's meaningful or important, what stands out to you? What are some elements? And actually, maybe the next slide will help. Think in terms of, these are two general categories, but think in terms of formal qualities. So that means the ad's use of color, sound, music, camera work. Some of these apply obviously to television commercials more than print ads. So technical stuff, okay? That's what I mean by formal, technical stuff. Or thematic qualities. So theme, motif, character, story, issues of audience, kind of like the more subtle stuff, the more interpretive things. Okay, so there's technical issues and then thematic issues. So if I go back to the Jeep ad, oops, we'll get to that ad next. What are some things that stand out? Jonathan says color. Okay, good. And by the way, one of the three, remember, think in threes. You have to identify three interesting but also meaningful aspects of the ad. One of the things that I wrote about for this Jeep ad is absolutely its use of color. And more specifically, its color and background. Because look at the background. It has a kind of like fabric quality, right? It reminds one of like textiles or fabrics. But also the color is beige. Now, I just said that no detail in an ad is accidental. Okay, so why would this ad use this type of color and this type of background? Ultimately, by the way, that's what ad analysis is. Answering the question why. Why this color? Why this background? Or maybe it's a commercial that uses music. Why this music? Or why this song? Why? Jonathan says the writing is done so that you have to take a hard look at it and pay more attention to the details. Okay, yeah, absolutely. There's a layout issue. And I didn't write about that in my paper, but certainly, yeah, you could point out that the ad is, despite being very minimal, it does have, it's not accidental that it has the Jeep name and the tagline, right? The little slogan, see whatever you want to see, right side up and upside down, because it encourages you to examine the image more closely. So, okay, there's that layout aspect. But let's go back to color. Can anybody here want to take a stab at that? Why this color? Beige or khaki? Why this kind of fabric-y, textile-like background? Think about Jeep. Why isn't this color pink or bright yellow or a mixture of colors? Why is it this sandy khaki color with the fabric-like background? Any thoughts on that? And if you want to say, listen, I'm clueless, I'm very confused, you can say that right now. Okay, good. Jonathan says, Jeep is an outdoor vehicle, a rugged vehicle. Right. I mean, the color is an earth tone, yes? I mean, what do we think of when we think of the word Jeep? One could argue the military. That's an outdoorsy thing as well. But the other thing is, right, the classic image of Jeep is that safari, going off-road. If you're taking a trip to see giraffes in the Serengeti, which is in Africa, or if you're going down to the tip of South America to see penguins, you're probably going to do so in a Jeep, not a Lexus, not a Mercedes-Benz. So, yeah, does this make sense to people? The color is an earth tone. The fabric quality reminds you of like burlap sacks or a canvas tent or khaki clothing. Again, earthy type fabrics, right? Outdoorsy type things. Can I get a confirmation from people if that makes sense? That the color in the background here is not accidental? Okay, because these are the things you're going to have to notice in your ad. You're going to have to spot 3 things and say, this detail is not accidental. I'm not encouraging people to pick the Call of Duty ad. I don't mind that so many people choose it, but I really do have lots of students choosing it. But for example, that ad uses a popular song. That song is not accidental. It wasn't chosen randomly. It wasn't chosen just because it's a popular song or that it's upbeat. Sure, that might be part of it, but no, the song actually, it fits the ad, and it fits even the game itself. Okay, so anybody who chooses the Call of Duty ad, there's a little hint right there. But these are the things we're talking about. Okay, and to speed things up, let me just talk about the other things that I discussed in my ultimate essay. I focus on imagery, okay? Not just, again, ad analysis is not summary. So yes, in my essay, I described that it has animal imagery, and it uses a reversible image. Looked at one way, it's a giraffe's head. Looked at another way, it's a penguin. So yes, some overview is going to be necessary because your audience, by the way, is the general reader. Okay, your audience is not me, even though I will read your work. Your audience is not your classmates, even though some of your classmates will read your work. No, your audience is the general reader. Okay, which is like the perfect stranger grabbed off the street. So yes, you'll have to explain some things. You'll have to give readers a sense of what the ad is about. But to only do that is summary, and that's not analysis. So anyway, one of the things I focused on was color in the background. Another thing I focused on was the imagery. And even though I explained what that imagery is, I went beyond that. Again, why the animal imagery? Why isn't this ad using reversible images of, I don't know, a Jeep car itself? Looked at one way, the image looks like a Jeep. Looked at another way, it looks like, I don't know, a transformer. Because transformers are cars that turn into robots. And I think we know the answer, right? Because it's kind of riffing on the same theme. Why does it use animal imagery? Again, it's Jeep, right? This ad would not work if this were a Lexus ad or if this were a Toyota ad. But it makes sense in terms of Jeep because Jeep is the kind of vehicle that you might actually take off the road to go discover giraffes and penguins. And actually, let me show my essay real quickly because I do want to highlight a couple things. And I will be returning to this ad and my essay throughout the month. By the way, I just made up a name. That's me, Jane, a student. So this is my introduction, and we'll talk next week about what you should do in an introduction paragraph in terms of grabbing the reader's attention. But you can see, I riff on the idea of Jeep. And again, I apologize. I'm getting way ahead of myself. We don't have to worry about this for week 1. But yeah, I think this summarizes kind of what Jeep is about. The Jeep spirit, and the loyalty that this motor car inspires is hardwired into our cultural consciousness. One can easily picture a driver behind the wheel of a Jeep downshifting around a snaking mountain bend, or kicking up dust through the sun-baked Australian outback, or zooming past zebras grazing the Serengeti. It is perhaps fitting, then, that Jeep's See Whatever You Want to See print ad embraces the sportive feelings that such a vehicle invokes. Okay, so that was my kind of move in the introduction, to remind people that, yes, this is what we think of when we think of Jeep. And I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself because actually it's later in the session that we're going to define thesis statements. But a thesis statement is typically a single sentence that ends the introduction that sets up the rest of the paper. And this is where you are going to identify those 3 things. Okay, your thesis is going to list your 3 thesis points, your 3 analysis points. For me, it's these guys right here. Through the use of simple color, 1, playful imagery, 2, and a double meaning tagline, 3, the ad appeals to the inner adventure inside everyone. Okay, so my thesis is setting up because what happens next? We get 1 paragraph about the ad's use of color. And yes, I take time to describe what the color is, but then I also answer the why question. Why this color? Why this background? The color choice is no accident, for it reinforces Jeep's outdoorsy image. Okay? Or here, the cincher line that ends the paragraph. The color scheme works to promote the rugged, off-roading image that the ad's creators clearly desire. Then I move on to my next point, imagery. Again, I describe it because the general reader maybe isn't familiar with the ad. But then I answer the why question. Okay, the animal imagery is effective because it connects strongly to Jeep's overall brand. Only in such a versatile automobile as Jeep could one take on a journey. Could take one on a journey into the heart of the African plain or the rocky tip of South America to see giraffes and penguins up close. And then finally, the ad's tagline. And I don't just explain what the tagline says, see whatever you want to see. I mean, I do that, but I also answer the bigger question, like why? What is the tagline doing? And I suggest that it has something. It reinforces Jeep's other popular quality, which is versatility. Okay, Jeeps are remarkably versatile. Yeah, you can use it to go off-roading, or you can use it to haul groceries, pick up the kids. I would suggest that the tagline is reinforcing this image of Jeep as the versatile automobile. Okay. Anyway, let's look at another example. And let's see if we can get through these kind of quickly. What are some things that stand out here? Just shout out things. Don't worry about right or wrong. What are details, aspects of the ad that immediately stand out? One-word answers would be great in the chat. Okay. I should note that this is an older ad. This actually comes from the early 1970s, but such an ad could exist today. There are lots of retro ads that try to look like they come from the 1970s or try to recreate the vibe of the 1970s. So yeah, even though this is an old ad, it's still worth looking at. Mark says the car. Okay, but what about the car? Because remember, I'm going to challenge you. If you say a thesis in the MG ad, or the MG ad uses blank, blank, and blank. Okay, and if one of those blanks is it uses a car, I'm going to say, okay, but what? What about the car? You're just telling me what you see on the page. John says the ad is definitely geared toward men. Okay, there's an important issue of audience. It's aiming at men. Okay, good. How does it do that? Or what other qualities stand out to you? And think about the ad we just looked at. In Jeep, we discussed the ad's background, or its use of color, its use of imagery, its tagline. What can we focus on here? Here, I'll help you out. Color is also important here. Okay? Not only because red is a sensual color. Red can indicate danger, but it can also indicate, sensuality, sexuality. Even the use of the yellow and red, it's a more, and I hope these words aren't too fancy, but it's kind of lurid. In other words, it fits the ad in that I hope people understand that, like, for example, the tagline. Jonathan just mentioned the tagline. Your mother wouldn't like it. What wouldn't your mother like about this car? Right? Actually, what your mother wouldn't like would be not just the car, but this woman. The woman's important, by the way, standing front and center. There's a layout issue, like she's at the front of the ad, front and center. So is the car. So there's definitely a connection between the woman and the car. Both are things that your mother would not like. Why? Because the woman seems independent. She seems to be a free spirit. Notice that she's braless. Notice that she's out alone at night. Again, a traditional old-fashioned mother might think that, men shouldn't be around such women or such cars, but the ad, of course, is playing on that idea. It's appealing to men who like things that are a little bit dangerous. I have to be careful with my language because obviously there's nothing dangerous about the woman. But the ad is playing with these notions, right? You feel a little bit naughty, a little bit adventurous if you buy a car like this. John says we are trying not to break the profession rule. Well, we're adults. So, by the way, when I say that, for example, she's braless, I don't point that out just because. No, that's meaningful too. We're talking about the 1970s. We're talking about we've just come out the 1960s. We're at the, I don't want to say the height, but definitely a strong period in the feminist movement. Bra burnings. So yeah, a little detail like that is important. It tells you that the woman, and by connection, the car, is for free spirits. Okay, it's for men who like to men who are seeking to be not so conventional. Now, if you understand that, then yeah, everything else seems to be connected as well. For example, the coloring. It's that sort of, again, lurid. I'm trying to think of another word that might mean the same thing. Um, Sultry. Okay, the coloring is also sultry, sensual. Uh, by the way, you can't maybe make out the poster, but I can already see that this is a movie theater. And even though you can only see the words Marlon Brando, I know what movie this is. The title is cut off here, but this is no accident. Okay, anybody who saw this ad circa 1973 would also recognize this poster in 2 seconds. Seductive, yeah, that's a good word, Jonathan. The coloring is lurid, sultry, seductive. So is the imagery of the woman and the car. But has anybody heard of the film Last Tango in Paris? Because that's the poster here. Last Tango in Paris. You have to be something of a film buff to know that movie. It was an X-rated movie. And it is, I mean, and today, of course, X rating only has to deal with adult films nowadays. But back then, a legitimate film could also receive an X rating. Today, it might be rated R or it might be NC-17. It is a incredibly sexually frank film. Nevertheless, it had Marlon Brando, a world famous actor, in it. It was nominated for Academy Awards, including Best Director. It is considered, yeah, a landmark piece of cinema. But yes, it is incredibly sexually frank. And it's, even by today's standards, it is not tame at all. Uh, Again, that's not accidental. So, issues involving the setting, okay, that it's in front of a theater that's showing this kind of movie. Everything about this ad is something your mother wouldn't like. Okay, it's appealing to men. And notice too, even small things like this guy who's staring at the woman who's front and center. Okay, or at least his gaze is in this direction. Maybe it's at the car, maybe it's at the woman, maybe it's both. Now, we've just mentioned a million different things. So, what are 3 things we could focus on? We could focus on the use of color. We could focus on the image of the woman and how she's portrayed, what that means, and how that is a connection to the car. We could talk about the overall setting, that we don't know if it's what time of day it is. It's probably dusk. Again, a kind of in between period. Uh, but yeah, the overall setting in terms of time of day, that it's in front of this movie theater, that's meaningful too. So already, the ad's use of color and lighting, the ad's use of imagery, meaning the woman and maybe even the car, the ad's use of setting, those could be 3 points. Or you could take the overall umbrella term of the ad's appeal to sexuality, but that's not enough. That's too broad. When students say, "Oh, the ad is selling sex," that's too simple. But if you break it down and say that the ad is playing with sexual imagery in terms of, again, the color and lighting, the image of the woman in the car, and a third thing, the overall setting, you have your 3 points. Okay, let's move on to one more example. I'm going to grab the URL and I'm going to put it in the chat. You can watch on your own, or I'm going to try to play it on my end. The problem is you may not be able to hear the sound too well. But it's an ad for Diet Coke. And what I want you to focus on is, again, already be thinking of things. What stands out to you in the ad? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and play it. And I'm going to crank up the sound. I'm probably going to get yelled at because I'm here in the office and it's a pretty loud ad. But let me click on it. And yeah, my computer is still being super choppy. Like, I've already clicked on the link. There we go. Okay, so there we go. I'll let it play one more time, and then I'll have to stop before someone comes and yells at me to turn it down. But again, things that you notice. Okay, So again, who wants to just shout out things? What are things that stand out? Again, don't worry about right or wrong. What are some technical things that stand out? Other types of things. What are like 3 moves? Okay, music, bluesy type of music. Let's stay there. What does the music remind you of, or why is that type of music being used in this ad? And let's see if we can nail it on the head pretty quickly, because I think we all know what this music suggests. So, why this funky kind of music? And by the way, yes, music I'd say is absolutely key in this ad. I'm just waiting for people to either type their answer or. By the way, I mean, a couple people are. It's mostly Jonathan, but are other people getting this? Like Jordan, Mark, Sharetta. Hope I'm saying that correctly. Does all this make sense? Okay, Jonathan Sharetta says to stimulate the mind. Okay, but Sharetta, it has to be much more specific than that. I could argue that lots of music stimulates. We have to be, and I know it's frustrating because it's day one and you're probably thinking, well, I'm not an expert at this yet. I understand. And I will be helping you with your own ideas. So don't worry. But yes, I'm going to push people. You have to, I see this with the Call of Duty ad, for example. Students say, like I said, it uses a famous song by the Rolling Stones. And I see too many students say, it's a famous song, it's a rocking song, it's upbeat, and then I have to say, okay, but lots of songs could have been chosen if that were the only criteria. So lots of music stimulates. What specifically is this music doing? Mark says the music has a cool, fresh kind of vibe. Okay, that's a bit more specific, but I'm going to be the mean instructor and say that's still too general. And I'm telling you, you all know the answer, but we're all walking around it. And by the way, I'm not trying to be that kind of instructor who thinks there's only one answer. Who's going to get it right? Who's going to get it wrong? I hate those kinds of teachers. But really, in this case, you know what it is. Let me go about this way. Is this ad serious or is it lighthearted? It's lighthearted, right? Okay, Jordan, good. It's sexual music, right? This funky waka waka, right? We associate it with either cheesy kind of love scenes in movies, or yes, not that I'm an expert on these things by any means, but this is the typical comical representation of like even adult films, right? That they have cheesy music that, again, it doesn't have to be adult material, but we all know this kind of music. It's connected to romance, or it's a bad, or you know what it is? It's also a bad exaggeration of like mood music, like R&B music, right? This idea that we're going to put on something funky and get someone in the mood. It's a playful, lighthearted ad, and one of the ways it does that is through the music, right? We hear that music and we know, haha, LOL. It's using funky kind of, sexy vibe music. Does this make sense to everybody? And that's the specificity that you're going to have to examine things. Because if you just say, oh, it's music and the music has a cool vibe, I'm going to say that's too general. Or the music is stimulating, I'm going to say that's too general. You have to examine the ad. Look at it like this. You're explaining to the general reader things about the ad that they may not recognize. They might recognize it subconsciously, but it's not until you point it out. Right? A lot of you probably looked at the Jeep ad and would never have thought about the ad's use of color, that it's an earth tone, or that it has this fabric quality to it that reminds people of like canvas, and that's not accident. That connects to the image of Jeep. But as soon as it was pointed out, I hope most of you thought, oh, wow, yeah, totally, I get that. You have to do the same thing with your chosen ad. You have to find 3 things where it's not that you have to find something super interpretive. I'm not asking for deeply symbolic readings. No, just 3 moves that the ad makes where you explain, hey, this is an accident. Okay, this music has been chosen because it's sort of parodying what culture thinks of as sexy music. Okay, does this make sense? Let's see, I'm missing some of the comments here. Jonathan says, a tall, dark, and handsome man with that funky background music. Right, and the tagline is important too, because we think of tall, dark, and handsome as usually what? A person, typically a man. Men are described as tall, dark, and handsome. But in this case, it's not a person, it's a tall glass of Diet Coke. So that's part of the lighthearted feel of it too. That it's riffing on this idea of, again, kind of sexuality or playfulness, the tall, thin glass of Diet Coke is being portrayed in sexual terms with sexual music. And that makes us smile. Shireta says, this, for instance, makes you want to taste Coke. It makes your imagination having some idea, wanting to experience the taste of a cold drink on a hot day. Yes, Shireta, but I'm going to be the mean instructor again and say that any Coke ad could do that. Any soft drink ad could do that. The goal here is not to make general comments about soft drink ads or to make, I mean, I agree with you. Absolutely. I mean, the look of the glass, of course it's appealing, right? That's what it's trying to do. But I want you to specifically examine this ad. What is this ad doing? All ads, all soft drink ads, of course, I think just about all soft drink ads, yeah, they feature a cold glass of the soft drink, usually with ice cubes, that makes your mouth water. But I want this specific ad to be examined. Okay? So two things that could become thesis points. The ad's use of music. The ad's tagline. I'm going to throw out a third thing. Camera work. Okay? Do you remember the camera work? Here, let me turn down the sound. We'll just watch. Okay, it's scanning up the glass. And this is yet another convention riffing on the same theme that we're connecting tall, dark, and handsome. Usually that's used to describe a person. It has funky sounding music, which makes us think of, yeah, sexy music. Not only that, but the tall glass of Diet Coke is slowly being revealed, almost like what we see in films where, and here it's a little bit of a reversal, because in films it's almost entirely the female body that's revealed in parts, right? You see it start at her ankle, and then it travels up the legs, and here it's not a person again, it's the glass of Coke. Right? So does this make sense that the entire ad is working to create one 15-second LOL moment where using, yeah, again, largely sexual imagery, though done playfully for a laugh, it's comparing Diet Coke to what we would normally think of as being used to describe as person. Okay? Shara says, I didn't have that thought. Party girl hanging out on a beach. I'm not sure I follow that comment. Are you saying that you didn't view the ad this way? That you think of? I mean, here's the thing, Shayretta. It's not about so much what you think about when you think about Diet Coke. That you think about parties and beaches. Again, the task is to examine this ad. Coke is not the subject. The ad is. What is this ad doing? I would argue that I don't think for most people they watch this ad and think about people on the beach. That might be what you think of when you think of a cool, refreshing drink on a hot day. But that's not the task of ad analysis. The task of ad analysis is to examine the ad in front of you. Okay? And again, I don't want to sound harsh, because actually Shireta is making brave comments, because I guarantee there are people here in this room, there are people who are going to watch the video that are going to, yeah, find ad analysis challenging. Ad analysis, I like to describe it as deceptively simple. It is simple in the sense that it really is straightforward. Look at the ad. Identify 3 things that are important, okay? 3 things that are not accidental, and spend some time talking about it. For the Jeep ad, it was the ad's use of color, the ad's imagery, and the ad's tagline. But yeah, there are sometimes, it's deceptively simple. The deceptive part is it's difficult, okay? And it can be difficult for some people to, it's almost like you have to just flip that switch in your mind and understand that analysis really is a straightforward examination of the ad, and noticing those 3 important moves that the ad makes. It's not summary, okay? So you're not going to describe the ad completely. You're not going to tell what the ad means. Like, it's not ad description, okay? It's not ad explanation. It's ad analysis. So yeah, the task is not to give your personal thoughts on what Diet Coke or what soft drinks bring to mind. If you choose a McDonald's ad, it's not about mentioning what burgers mean to you or how juicy the burger looks in the commercial. No, it's to specifically look at that ad and focus on 3 things that it is trying to do. Okay? And again, I'll help you. And as a matter of fact, Shayretta and others, for people who do struggle to come up with those 3 things, I will give you a list. I will say, here are 6 or 7 things, interesting things going on in the ad. Okay. We don't have time. I'm actually running a little bit long. I try to keep these things to an hour, but I do have one final thing to go over. But real quickly, the McDonald's ad, which we're not going to watch. There is a moment in that ad, because it's called First Day, and it focuses on a young man's first day at work. And he gets dragged around the office. He's given a tour of the new place of employment by this woman who is speaking a mile a minute. During the tour, the young man crosses paths with a young woman who is also being dragged around the office. She's clearly on her first day of work. It's literally a second or two, and you would think that's just completely meaningless. And yet later, when the young man escapes from the stress of the environment, right, and heads to McDonald's to find relief, who does he see there? The same young woman. That's not accident, okay? It's all set up. He crosses paths with the young woman because he's going to bump into her again at the end, excuse me. It's noticing little things like that. Things that seem like they're insignificant, like the music. Okay, yeah, it's cool music. It has a cool vibe. No, think beyond that. And again, I'm going to help, okay? I'm going to give you ideas if you're struggling to come up with them. But I do want you to make a good effort at first, coming up with the ideas on your own. So the final thing I need to cover, thesis statements. And I might have to skip through some of these slides. Okay, so the assignment for this week is to fill out a worksheet. And it's essentially a brainstorming worksheet. And yes, all the prompts in the worksheet are important, but there is a single prompt near the end of the worksheet that deals with thesis statements. The thesis statement is key because you won't be able to move forward or even complete the future assignments well unless you have a solid thesis. And the thesis is, yes, it narrows your focus. Okay, a thesis is like the roadmap to your paper. It tells readers where your paper is heading. Okay, so remember we looked at the Jeep essay and I highlighted the final sentence because usually the thesis is the final sentence of the opening paragraph. And it said something like, through the use of simple color, playful imagery, and a double meaning tagline, the Jeep ad, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so it lists the three things that I'm going to be discussing: color, imagery, tagline. So your thesis has to do the same thing. So here are two thesis examples using the two ads that we looked at, or two of the three, Jeep and Diet Coke. Here's the Jeep thesis, okay, which I just said out loud so I don't have to repeat it. But again, color, imagery, tagline. Those are my three thesis points. These are the things that I'm going to discuss one at a time in paragraphs of their own. Okay, we're working toward a 5-paragraph essay, an introduction, a conclusion, and 3 body paragraphs in between, where you discuss your 3 thesis points one at a time. That's why it's key to have a solid thesis. And here's the one for Diet Coke. The Diet Coke Tall, Dark, and Handsome ad uses sexually charged language, so tall, dark, and handsome, seductive music, okay, and slow camera movement to convince women to buy into the idea that drinking Diet Coke is as fulfilling as a heteronormative romance. That's just a fancy way of saying, traditional romance, right, between men and women. The ad probably isn't aimed at LGBTQ persons. Maybe you could argue that maybe it is in some way, but it doesn't seem to be. But anyway, 3 things, right? Language, so the tagline, music, and camera movement. Now, maybe you noticed other things going on in the ad. Maybe you want to discuss its use of color, or I'm trying to think what else in that ad. I mean, those are the 3 big ones. Again, it's a very short ad, pretty minimalist, and language, music, camera movement seem to be the 3 key things. Okay, you are going to do the same thing. And to finish off this session, let me just real quickly, super quickly, show you the first assignment, first major assignment worth 10% of your grade. It's this guy here, step 1, preparing to write. I'm going to go into preview mode, and here's the worksheet. And as you can see, it's a worksheet that you'll complete. Some of the questions are very basic. What is the title of your ad? That's easy. What company or organization was this ad created for? That part's easy. McDonald's, Salvation Army. But there's an additional question. What creative team worked on the ad? So that might require a little bit of research. Describe the ad as if you're explaining it to someone who has never seen it before. So yeah, this should be a pretty detailed summary, but also don't forget to read this part. Some students stop here. So they do a good job describing the ad, but be sure to identify important details that stand out, such as color, symbol, use of space, lighting, sound effects, music, camera movement, camera angles, characters, etc., etc., etc. Because those details you're going to then explain in number 4. Okay. Why do you think these details were used? And so on. Most of these are self-explanatory. I want to explain one that always confuses students. Here, number 8 says list 3 possible tactics, techniques. By the way, I didn't design this document. I'm not trying to pass the blame. I would have worded things a little bit more clearly. But when I say list 3 possible tactics, techniques, again, those are those 3 things you've identified in the ad. Okay, 3 moves that the ad makes. And then those are listed here, and they get listed in a thesis statement. And here you have those 2 sample thesis statements, one from the Diet Coke ad, one from the Jeep ad, and you will create your own 2 thesis statements. Why 2? Because if you take 2 stabs at it, there's a greater chance that one might be stronger than the other, or maybe elements from both combined will create a terrific thesis, but any one of them on their own maybe isn't all the way there. So we want you to try it, twice. And then this final prompt confuses people. This prompt does not ask for research. It asks for research ideas. So what are the things you think you might research? I'll give you a giant hint. Not exclusively, but to a certain degree, you're going to do research into your 3 thesis points. So if, for example, in the Jeep ad, I examine the Jeep's use of color. So researching color theory, finding quotations or research that reinforce my ideas about earth tones, about how certain colors invoke earthiness, because that's going to be a main point I make with the Jeep ad. So that's what I'm asking for here, or your general ideas of what you might be looking into research-wise. You don't have to do research. You shouldn't be dropping in web addresses, okay? Again, give me key ideas, keywords that you think you'll use to conduct research. Okay, so questions, comments, anything. I apologize. Again, I usually do try to keep these at an hour because I've noticed that I lose people if I go longer than an hour. So thank you so much for hanging in there. If you're comfortable with everything we've gone over, you are allowed to go enjoy the rest of your evening. I thank you so much, and we'll do this again the same time next week. I'm going to hang out though, and I'll answer questions that you have, either about anything we've gone over regarding thesis statements or ad analysis, or questions that have to do with the class as a whole. Shireta says, is the thesis statement somewhat like a main idea? Yes, absolutely. I think the difference is that in the real world, do you always see a thesis, or do you always see a statement that says, essentially, in this paper, this paper will discuss A, B, and C, and then the paper discusses A, B, and C one at a time. No, actually, you rarely see such telegraph thesis statements. We want you to create a pretty telegraph thesis statement simply because I think it's important for so many of our students to know clearly the 3 things they're going to be writing about and to understand how those 3 thesis points will set up the entire paper. But certainly out in the real world, you see much more subtle sentences. And those more subtle sentences we usually call a main idea. But main idea, thesis, they have the same goal in mind. They typically appear near the end of the very first paragraph, and they set up the rest of the paper. Again, the thesis is much more formal, and it's going to explicitly list your 3 analysis points. A main idea tends to be more subtle. Okay. Jonathan, are any assignments due on Wednesday nights? No. Other classes have things scattered throughout the week, so some things are due on Thursday. I just thought it was simple to move everything to Sunday. The only exception is peer review. That's not until week 4, but peer review actually ends on a Friday. But every other activity for this entire course ends on Sunday. I've heard from students that they like that because it helps them in their mind know just one date instead of many dates. Some students juggle multiple responsibilities, jobs, spouses or partners, children, sometimes multiple jobs. And so the weekend is the time where they can complete the lion's share of their work for the class. So they can devote entirely Saturday and Sunday. And obviously that's impossible to do if something is due on Thursday. So yeah, I've set everything for Sunday. Okay. Uh, Good. Jonathan seems happy with that. Yeah, I haven't heard any complaints yet. Why aren't you why aren't you spreading out the activities so that they're due on several different days? I do think there's a danger though, because it does tempt some students to hold off everything until Saturday or Sunday, and that can result in things being rushed, things being incomplete, or yeah, mostly rushed. So, any other questions about anything that we've gone over or anything related to the class as a whole? Like I said, if this session was incredibly lucid and clear, you don't have to stick around, although I understand that maybe you're sticking around because you want to hear other questions. That's fine. When the questions slow down, I will bring the session to an end, though, and start the recording so I can get the lecture video up for those who could not attend live. Okay, have a good night, Jonathan. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. I'll hang out for a little bit, but I'll stop the recording because I don't think anybody's asking more questions. I'll stop the recording now. Now. Adios, everyone. Actually, I'm sticking around, but to those who are watching this in video format, adios. Thanks for watching.